Thank you so much for being part of this series and agreeing to be part of this series with Black Girl Recovering. Um, this is so important, not just to me, but also I feel like to our community. And so I wanted to kind of like dive right in and start asking you some questions.
I
Um,
guess I probably should have told you it is Aisha. How did I let you get?
Aisha,
How did I let you get there and, and mispronounce that? That is all my fault.
because I have a girlfriend, her name spelled the same,
And it's
and
pronounced Aisha,
yes,
which is the
so it's
Arabic
Aisha.
or Hebrew pronunciation,
Okay,
Aisha. Yes, but I'm a good old Eastside San Antonio girl named Aisha.
okay, I got you.
Absolutely.
So my first question for you is, could you share with us your journey to becoming a licensed professional counselor and supervisor with a PsyD in counseling psychology? Could you share us what led you here?
So interesting. I shared that briefly yesterday in a LinkedIn post as I was promoting a project that I'm getting ready to do this weekend. And my interest into mental health had always been somewhere in the area of either counseling or teaching. Wasn't really sure. I was very young. Served active duty Air Force from 2004 to 2010. And when I got to my first duty station at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama, I remember moving on to the base, literally just traveling in, getting set up in my dorms, meeting people. And there was a gentleman that lived in the dorm on the other end of the dorm who didn't kind of congregate with everybody, which was not necessarily normal. The dorms on a military installation, I'm going to assume, favor the dorm experience of a college. I've
Absolutely.
never lived on a college campus, but in the moments I've got to spend time, I was like, "Yep, this kind of looks like dorms on base."
Hmm.
Nevertheless, the individual was somewhat isolated. Later, to find out that he actually didn't live in the dorms, but was experiencing what's called a no contact order
Mm,
with his wife and children. So he was not allowed to be at home. So they put
okay.
him in the dormitory on base. And I remember thinking, like, man, that's terrible. Like, what? I've never heard of a no contact order. What happens?
Hmm.
And rumor mill starts, right? Everybody's speculating what took place and all of these things. And at some particular point, me and this gentleman ended up having a conversation. And I was floored at what I identified to be a very simple need. He
Mm,
literally needed some assistance financially, and it got to a place that it escalated, and him and his wife got into a verbal altercation in front of their children. Um, and I was thinking to myself, well, what is the reason for this organization on campus or this or this? And he was like, no, we can't go to them. Like, that'll mess with your career. You'll get in trouble and da da da. And I'm looking at him like, you kind of in trouble right now.
right?
Like we might as well go to the
Mm,
the length and get the support. But it was in that little season that I thought about how stigmatizing it was in the military to even say you needed help. When there was help available, but people being so afraid of what asking for that help could do to their careers, they wouldn't even utilize it.
yeah.
So that's my origin story of how I ended up shifting fully in my education to becoming a therapist. That's what I wanted to
Mm,
do, and took that journey. So finished my undergrad degree and my master's degree while on active duty. I got a medical retirement in 2010, maybe about 6 weeks before I graduated with my master's here in San Antonio from Our Lady of the Lake University, who had a counseling psychology master's at the time. Became a licensed professional counselor in 2011, and then became a licensed professional counselor supervisor in 2015 to 2016,
mm,
which allows me to supervise master's level clinicians that are
yeah.
accruing hours for their full license.
Yeah.
In 2016, I got a wild hair to say, ooh, I want to expand my private practice, me and my partner, to start doing assessments and all of these other big things. And the only way to do that is go back to school. So I went back to Our Lady of the Lake, got enrolled or accepted rather into the PsyD program, the
Mhm.
APA accredited PsyD program, and miraculously completed that doctorate a year in advance.
Wow.
So that is how I became a PsyD. I am the class of 2020. So unfortunately, did not get to cross that stage and get
I
hooded as a
know.
result of COVID. I think I'm still grieving that slightly, but that is the quick and dirty of my academic and professional journey.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Well, I was in the military too, and I knew the struggle
Hmm.
of fearing seeking any kind of help
Absolutely.
around your mental health. And even though at the time I didn't connect the dots that it was a mental health issue, I just knew something was wrong. And so instead of reaching out for help, I just tried to do things,
Do
party
it.
it away, which in and of itself is another topic we could discuss at length. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now, how have your experiences as a Black woman and as a disabled veteran shaped your approach to counseling?
That's a great question. I will be honest and say when I started my career in psychology was or mental health rather, it was shortly after coming out of uniform. It had barely been a year, if that, that I had been removed from my active duty days. So it took a little bit of time for me to adjust to civilian life.
Yeah.
And it was the acknowledgement of just how different my new career was going to be from that of Staff Sergeant Woods.
Mhm.
And in that, I had to start paying attention to how my identities presented. At that time, my health, um, even now, right, I have what people identify as an invisible illness because you cannot look at me and just automatically assume something's going on. And I utilized that to what I felt like was my advantage
Yeah.
in an effort to not be necessarily treated different or viewed in a particular way, until my health took a pretty rough turn in 2015. And at the beginning of 2016, there was an oxygen tank strapped to my hip everywhere.
Mm. Okay.
So I was no longer invisible,
Mhm.
disabled. And I remember the difficulty that I experienced internally, the embarrassment of
Yeah.
having to carry this tank. And it wasn't like the little cute, put it in a little backpack. It was the OG metal rolling, clanking
Yep.
down a
Yep.
hill. Like it was a whole thing. Um, so I think from the disability standpoint, it really humbled my approach to mental health because what I began to understand is that there were people sitting across from me in my private practice, people sitting across from me in my classrooms who were also hurting. The
Yeah.
difference was we couldn't see it.
Mhm.
Where all of a sudden, now you could see mine.
Yeah.
And because you could see it, you had compassion.
Mm.
Individuals that are hurting and struggling mentally, very seldom do we approach them from a heart or a space of compassion. So that's something I've taken with me all the way through this 13-year career of making sure to remember to be compassionate to people that are hurting. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean that they're not in pain, doesn't mean that they're not struggling.
That's right.
From the perspective of my identity as a Black American woman, it became very clear to me that I became a unicorn in this field. It did not think about that in the midst of pursuing the education, but the moment that it was kind of, oh, there's a Black therapist in building such and such. Oh, there's a black. You need a black there. Oh, there's a Black therapist, and I was like, is it only me? And I remember very
Mm.
quickly starting to try to gather somewhat of a database of people
Yeah.
of color, specifically Black women or Black men in the city of San Antonio that provided private practice counseling. At that time, there were 11 of us
Mm.
in the seventh largest city in the United States.
Wow.
It was 11 of us. I was like, okay, yeah, we can't cover the base. Even though Black San Antonio's population is small,
Mhm.
it's still bigger than the need of 11 clinicians.
Absolutely.
And I can only imagine, as we have done so much work to kind of reduce the stigma for Black and Brown communities to seek help and support. I don't know if that number of 11 has grown, as I haven't done the research in some years. But I constantly get calls or emails. Do you know somebody? Do you know,
Mhm.
are you seeing anybody? Are you taking clients? And I'm so grateful for that, because it makes me feel like people are starting to get to a place that they're feeling comfortable with the
Mhm.
idea, but it also makes me feel very obligated and
Yeah.
responsible to support my community in that way. So the
Or
experience
to
as a
and
Black woman in mental health is intense in a city where there's so few.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to work for an organization that did education, around mental health. And I was afforded the opportunity to go into faith communities and talk
Mm-hmm.
about mental health. And when I learned that I was going to be able to do that, I said, sign me up.
Absolutely.
Uh, and every time I'd go, I started learning that I needed to bring resources
Hmm.
because
Yes.
without fail, I'd get stopped by, someone inquiring,
Hmm.
are you doing private practice? And I'm
Hmm.
not. And
Right.
so I was
Right.
like, you know what? I need to at least have a couple of resources under my belt to be able to give out because
Absolutely.
yes, as we are doing this awareness education, our community is actually saying, you know what, I need to see someone.
I need to see
And that,
somebody. Yeah.
oh, that
Yeah.
encourages me so much. But
Tremendously.
I would wager, and you know what, I'm going to do some research, how many clinicians of color, especially Black clinicians, are out there in San Antonio,
Yeah.
because it's important for us to always have that in our tool belt to be
Absolutely.
able to share out, because sometimes just asking is the hardest part, and you only get one chance.
You're absolutely right. And I am adamant about responding. I get
Mhm.
dry emails all the time, complete
Yeah.
strangers, um, that will say, I need a referral. People
Yeah.
I've never met before, people that I do not know. And I stop, I say, give me 48 hours,
Mhm.
answer these couple of questions for me. Are you good with in person? Do you want somebody that's virtual? Are you paying out of pocket? Do you wish your sure? Give me all of this data so I can, in the middle of the night, from my bed, create you a resource list,
Yeah.
because you're absolutely right. It might be just that moment that they feel strong enough to say, I need this help, I need this support. We got to take advantage of that.
Do you have a, a a lot of clients who are veterans?
That's my primary client pool
Okay.
right now in my full-time position. Um, I struggle to say I don't work in private practice, because I technically do not operate a private practice,
Mhm.
but I keep the legality and the LLC and the things in the instance I need to pick somebody up for a bit.
Got you.
But in my full time position, I only work with veterans.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it because that's who I get approached about a lot and
that's new
wanting
for
to
me.
provide.
I'm brand new. I have never worked with the veteran population until March of 23, when I took a new position. I've been in college and university mental health for years, as well as private practice. So I stepped out of that kind of comfort area, to tackle this new area, and it's been quite rewarding. But it's also been quite challenging.
I bet.
The veteran population has a very high acuity, in a number of what we would identify as serious mental health
Yes.
situations. Um, so it's challenging me, as a psychologist, as a clinician, growing me in various ways in the development of how I do treatment planning. I'm very big on collaborating with my
Mhm.
clients. And I think for a lot of folks, that's kind of, you're asking me? Absolutely. You're the expert here. I'm here to walk alongside you. You know your life way better than me. So how dare
Mhm.
I come in and tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing? And I have found that that is a very welcomed approach, specifically for veterans who are used to being told. All right, we're gonna do this, and this is what it is. We follow
Yeah.
orders, right? When somebody tells me,
Mhm.
Roger that, got it. Um, so shifting that perspective to help people have some ownership to their own mental health, and it seems to be working out pretty well.
All right. I love it.
Mm.
And thank you uh, for the service you are providing to our veterans, because that is also my heart area is our veterans and active duty, because I connect a lot with active duty as well. And what they're wanting is someone they can private pay
Yes,
for
yes,
fear.
a fear,
Mm-hmm.
still fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Hmm.
you for that. All
Absolutely.
right. Next question. You have a specialty in the clergy and mental health. So, how do you collaborate with faith communities to support mental health awareness and services, particularly in the Black community?
Excellent question. So that specialty developed as a result of my dissertation research,
Hmm.
which was entitled "Serving Those Who Serve Us."
Yeah.
And I did an IPA on clergy members who have access and or participated in mental health services. Traveled the U.S., went to Oakland for a couple of days to do some interviews, met clergy members of various sects and religions to get an understanding of what their experience has been when it comes to mental health, seeking mental health services, seeking support. Were they able to do so? What were some of the barriers that they experienced? Was it helpful? Was it not? And I've always had a heart for the man and or woman of God, as a person that's grown up in the church. And it started some years ago when my pastor at that time was texting me about the very, very surprising death of a not a member of the church, but someone who used to visit the church who was really, really young, maybe
Hmm.
40, playing basketball, literally had a heart attack on the court and died.
Wow.
And I was texting back with Pastor, I'm so sorry that happened. Oh my goodness, give me a call. And he's like, no, don't call me. I don't want you to hear me crying.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay. So we text back and forth. And it was in that moment, I didn't start the doctoral process to 2 years after this happened, two, maybe 3 years. But it was then that I was like, well, who does the pastor go to when they struggle?
Oh, that part.
Yeah, like it really
Mm.
caught me off guard in the sense of I was very grateful that he knew he could come to me. But then I thought about it. I'm somewhat new in pastor's life. It's only been a couple of years. Who do you go to in these moments? Who do you go to when you struggle? Who do you go to when you have questions or when you were struggling? Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And it just opened up this gamut. So then when I started the doctoral process, I was very adamant. Oh, I already have my doctoral, my dissertation topic. I already know my hypothesis question. I know what I'm looking for. And I didn't get pushback, but I also didn't get support,
Gotcha.
which was very interesting because some rules actually had to be changed in an effort for me to get the dissertation committee I needed because I had been essentially turned down by almost everyone in the university that had the ability to sit on my committee.
Mm. Was it because it was like faith community?
I'm going to a Catholic institution. I think it had everything to do with the fact that it hadn't been done before.
Got
It
it.
was not a topic that it was very difficult to even find research for me to create the lit review, which to me even spoke more volumes as to why this topic was needed. I had an
Hmm.
amazing dissertation chair. Shout out to Dr. Bernadette Solozano, who supported me wholeheartedly from the beginning. Um, I ended up having an excellent dissertation, defended my dissertation a year in advance. It was great. So fast forward to where I am now in working in faith-based communities. I typically will get contacted by various churches, large and small, for a number of things. Some churches have brought me in to have some conversations with leadership and how to take care of their mental health as leaders. I have supported some. churches in maybe some difficult moments that they encountered in their congregation and needing some guidance as to what the legalities are for certain things. How do we have this particular conversation with this particular family? So things of that nature I've been able to do. And I always, always, always open myself up to individual private practice counseling to clergy members.
Yes.
That is the one demographic I do not turn away.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a lot of that just has to do with my level of research in that particular area and knowing the difficulty it already is for clergy members to find mental health clinicians that have an understanding of their call and the need to be very safe,
Yeah.
to provide that safety net, to provide that safety space. Um, and that's one of the reasons that I have actually made the decision to not join a church, which is completely outside of my norm, as I served in a church for a number of years in my former life as the first lady.
Yeah.
And coming out of that circumstance and situation, and I thought about that and was like, what is my role now? I serve in church. That's been my whole life. And found a lot of peace and comfort that my role is to serve God's call. So not having an attachment, I think, makes me a little more safer um, to some folks. And I've actually had two people in particular in this city that's like, oh, okay, so I can see you because I feel like, and I'm like, absolutely. Um, so I do a lot of work in the Black church. I do some work in the Latino church too, which I absolutely love when it comes from a multicultural perspective
Yes.
and understanding some of the nuances of uh, what our cultural aspects, cultural backgrounds look like in the faith based community and the overarching stigma of mental health in faith based communities. So it is amazing work to be able to start dispelling that. When I was at Duke University, I did a brown bag lunch special called You Can Have Jesus and a Therapist Too, and it was a hit. Um, so that's one of my little things in the tool belt. And I'm like, I need to bring that back because that was a good opportunity to help people
You
understand that
do
you
need to
can
bring that
have.
back.
I might need to bring that back. I might need to circle the block on that one. That was pretty good.
Yes, to normalize the
Yes,
fact that it is totally okay to
absolutely.
care for your mental health and seek
Mhm,
support around that and
mhm.
still have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah,
You
and I'm
do.
like, I'm gonna need y'all to read the book because there was a few of them folks that had support and people that they went to and people that they trusted.
Yeah.
Um, Now they may not have had the term psychologist or the term therapist or whatever the case, but they were people of wisdom,
Mhm.
called
Mhm.
people of wisdom, and they served in that capacity for a number of folks. So yeah, you're right. I might need to circle that
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I'd show up for that.
one.
All right. So I have two more questions.
Sure.
Um, for individuals aspiring to enter the field,
Mhm.
especially those from underrepresented backgrounds like yourself, what advice would you give them based on your own experiences?
Number one,
All right, we got 10 minutes, ma'am.
yeah, I'm gonna make it quick too. Make sure you know why you're wanting to
Mm,
get in this field.
yeah.
Um, I have unfortunately had some experiences of people getting in this field in an effort to not take care of their own mental health. I've had some experiences of people who have a savior complex as a result
Yeah.
of maybe some of their own trauma.
Hmm.
I am going to implore you, please make sure that you are entering in this field for the right reasons. Take care of yourself first. If you have some things that you need to process, some past that you need to work through so that you can be the most effective mental health provider, do so. Do so. Absolutely. Number two, make sure you research the program.
Yeah.
Make sure you research the program that you're looking at. Don't be afraid to move. If you
Hmm.
find a program that's going to suit your needs, if you find um, faculty that have research interests that are similar to yours, that have the potential to be supportive on a number of fronts, don't be afraid to move. Reach out to those programs, ask questions, ask to come for an interview, ask to come, just look around.
Yeah.
That's something I did not do. I would highly encourage that. Number three advice I would give: take care of yourself in the midst of this. Um, the doctoral experience is life changing,
Yeah.
for both the good and the bad. And I remember people telling me that prior to starting, and I'm thinking to myself, "Psh, I serve active duty, I ain't tripping." And then I was in the middle of the third year and I was breaking down like, oh my God, this is unreal. I can't do this. Um, so make sure you take care of yourself. Don't be
Yeah.
frightened by the experience. Don't be frightened by what it's going to take to get through to the other side. You absolutely can do it if your heart is there. Um, and seek mentorship.
Mhm.
Seek mentorship. That's something that I always create time for anybody, a person of color that is in a master's or doctoral program in mental health. Reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out and find somebody that can help guide you through this process, someone that you can build a relationship with, someone that you can ask questions with, and try to find somebody outside of your program, right? So you can
Mm.
rely on your program for the academic things. And when you finish comps and you finish a paper and you just need a voice of reason that has an understanding of what you just went through, you have somebody. So those are
Yeah.
the couple things I would drop as little
That's
nuggets
great
of wisdom.
advice.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Especially the part about taking care of self and the one about asking for help. Because a lot of us, especially Black women, we have a hard time with that because we're
I
never
will
taught
be
how.
I'm giving a presentation this Saturday. Good old shout out to Project Quest, where I'm going to talk
Oh,
about
Margaret.
asking for help,
Yeah.
and getting to a place where we not only feel comfortable asking for help, but knowing that we can.
Yes.
We are not expected to move through this life alone, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, many of us are raised in a culture, community, society. You got to get it how you live. That's not That's not
Mm.
it. It's too
Yeah.
much. None of us should be doing this by ourselves. And we need to normalize the fact of asking for support and
Mm.
asking for help. If I need help, please know I'm going to reach out. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to ask because I have a desire to be successful and I know I can't do it by myself.
All
But I
right.
have to admit, it took me some years to get to that point.
Mm.
So I want to do my part to try to help folks not take as long as I did to recognize that it is okay for me to ask for help,
Yeah.
um, which is now one of the reasons that when someone reaches out and asks me for help, if I can, I'm getting it done. I don't care what it is because I
Yes.
know how difficult that can be.
You know. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. From my own personal experience.
Absolutely.
Oh, that actually that's a good kind of like segue into lastly,
Hmm.
what's next on the horizon for Dr. Woods that we should be like on the lookout for?
That's such a great question. It's the hardest of all the questions. I will be celebrating my 41st year around the sun tomorrow. And
Happy birthday.
thank you. Anytime I get into a birthday season, I become extremely reflective.
Mm,
Spend a lot of time journaling, spend a lot of time in prayer, spend a lot of time quiet, and a lot of time celebrating because I am one of those people. Something happens when you develop an ailment
mm,
that every birthday all of a sudden becomes super, super important. So, what's next? I am not 110% sure. And that is an issue for good old Dr. Woods because she likes to be in control. Um, but in this season of my life, I am relinquishing the need to always know. That was a word. That was a bar. I am relinquishing the need to always have it planned,
yeah.
to always have the answer, and to not feel fearful that I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know what I would like to do. I want to continue to work in my community, doing presentations, doing workshops. That brings me such joy. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me sharp on research. Um, I want to continue to do that. I definitely want to end up back in the classroom as an adjunct. That is my favorite side
Hmm.
hustle of them all. Typically, I teach a class or two. Um, I'd like to do that again.
Yeah.
career wise, professional wise, where I am right now, I think is good, but I know there's more for me.
Ah,
I know there's more for me. I don't know what that's
mhm.
going to look like. I don't know where that's going to take me.
Yeah.
But in this season and on this day, I'm ready. Whatever
Well,
that's
can
going to
I just
be.
say I'm excited for where it takes you. I'm excited because I know
I'm
we're going to
ready.
be blessed.
Indeed. Thank you so much. It's exciting. It's nerve wracking in the sense that, as I stated, I'm a planner. I know what's going on year one, year five, year 10.
Mhm.
But that's just not why I'm being called right now. And I am going with that. So yeah, I don't know what's next for Dr. Woods, but keep your eyes open because she's gonna be somewhat close.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for taking
Absolutely.
time out of your busy schedule to meet with me and
Yeah,
just share a little bit about who you are to not just me, but also to our community.
absolutely.
And we're going to be on the lookout because I know there are great things in store.
I believe it as well. Thank you so much, Miss Donna. I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. You have a blessed day.